anxiety at work, or how we destroy our health for a paycheck. Andrew is 43 years old, middle manager at a large company, responsible, serious, appreciated by his superiors. And every morning, before he steps into the elevator, he stands for 30 seconds in the parking lot and breathes deeply. Not for meditation, but because his heart is beating so hard, he's afraid someone will hear it in the open space. Do you know Andrew? Or are you Andrew? In the previous episodes, we talked about anxiety in relationships, about how it affects the people we love. Today we talk about the place where we spend 1/3 of our lives, the place where anxiety hides best, dressed up as ambition, responsibility, and professionalism, the workplace. And what anxiety does there is devastating. The mechanisms of anxiety at work. Let's talk about 3 patterns we see most often in psychotherapy, and which you might recognize yourself. First, paralyzing perfectionism. Sarah, 38 years old, is on the 12th draft of a presentation. Not because the first 11 were wrong, but because none of them were good enough. The presentation was due 3 hours ago. Her manager has asked twice. Sarah is still working. And you know what the irony is? The harder she tries to be perfect, the more her anxiety grows. Perfectionism is not a virtue. It is anxiety disguised as high standards. Second, fear of authority. Michael, 41 years old, receives an email from the CEO. Subject, a few questions about the project. Michael reads the email 7 times, analyzes every word. Do a few questions mean something is wrong? Does it mean he's going to be fired? Does it mean he spent 2 hours building catastrophic scenarios? The CEO wanted to know if the project was going well. That's all. Third, the inability to say no. Jennifer hasn't refused a single task in 7 years of work. 7 years. She collects tasks like trophies nobody asked for. At home, she has no energy for anything. Weekends are spent recovering for the week ahead. And every Monday morning, she starts all over again. These are not character flaws. They are cognitive patterns, and they can be changed. David, 45 years old, came to therapy after his doctor told him his blood pressure was dangerously high for his age. He had no problems at home, no problems in his relationship. He had a problem he had never named. He was afraid every single day that he would be found out, that someone would realize he wasn't as competent as he appeared, that his entire career had been a series of lucky coincidences, not real merit. This is called, in psychology, the imposter syndrome. And it is far more common than you think. Studies show that over 70% of professionals have experienced it at least once. David worked 11 hours a day, not because it was necessary, but because the extra hours gave him the illusion that he was compensating for what he believed he lacked. In therapy, he discovered something surprising. His colleagues admired him. His manager considered him one of the most valuable people on the team. And he didn't know, because anxiety filters reality. It keeps only the evidence that confirms its fears and ignores everything else. 8 months of cognitive behavioral therapy later, David works 8 hours a day. His blood pressure is normal, and for the first time in 15 years of his career, he actually enjoys what he does. Concrete solutions. Now let's talk concretely. What can you do when anxiety invades your workday? First solution, cognitive restructuring applied to work. When an anxious thought appears in, I will fail this presentation, my manager will fire me, I'm not good enough. Stop and ask yourself, What is the real evidence for this thought? And what is the evidence against it? The anxious brain presents negative scenarios as facts. They are not facts. They are interpretations. Second solution, healthy boundaries. I know. Healthy boundaries at work sounds like an oxymoron in most workplaces. But listen, saying no to an extra task doesn't mean you're lazy. It means you understand that an exhausted employee produces nothing of value. Not for the company, not for themselves. Third solution, the worst case scenario technique. When anxiety tells you everything will go wrong, ask yourself sincerely, if the worst thing possible actually happened, what would I do? You will discover that almost always there's a plan B and a plan C. Anxiety lives on the illusion that there is no way out. You know there always is. Michael applied these techniques. Now he reads his manager's emails once, responds professionally, and goes home at 6. Revolutionary? No. Healthy? Absolutely. I want to close with something. Society never tells us directly. Your value as a human being is not equal to your productivity at work. You are not a report submitted on time. You are not a flawless presentation. You are not the number of hours spent in front of a screen or the figure at the bottom of a PowerPoint slide. You are a human being with real limits, with real needs, with a life that exists outside of working hours. Andrew now stands in the parking lot and breathes, not from anxiety, but because he gave himself permission to start the day at his own pace. Sarah sends the presentation at the 3rd draft, not the 12th, and nobody noticed the difference, except her, who reclaimed 9 hours of her life. David left the office yesterday at 5:30, had dinner with his family, slept 8 hours, and this morning, for the first time in many years, his heart didn't race in the parking lot. Work matters, but not more than the person doing it. One breath at a time, one step at a time. And sometimes, the courage to go home on time.